So in today's project, we're going to be starting out our portrait. And you can see in mine, I've already gotten it set up with a sketch of our model, Gaetan Matarazzo from Stranger Things, playing Dustin. I've used a projector to get this on here in pencil. I kept it fairly light, focusing mostly on outlines. Not getting too much detail in because the pencil has a tendency to come up and get mixed into the paint. It has a tendency to show through. This is not my preference. I don't like starting out with pencil, but for the purposes of this project, I thought it would be better for you guys to begin that way because I want to focus on painting issues, on color mixing issues, and not so much on drawing problems. So if we have a good clean sketch on here already, you don't have to worry so much about making it look like the person that you're trying to paint. So get your drawing on there using a projector if you can. You can use tracing paper or a graphite transfer. If you have to, you could use the grid method, which is very time consuming, but it works. Your last option should be to just eyeball it, unless you're really good at drawing things or you really have no other option. Hopefully you have a projector you can get access to because that's really easy and you can transfer it on there in just a few minutes. So I've got only two colors in my palette right now. I'm working with yellow ochre, which just like the other painting I've demoed is a great way to start out. It's very neutral, it's easy to cover up, and if you're working in oil paint, it's a particularly fast drying color. The other color I have is a permanent green deep color, which you always want to have a cool color when you're painting the figure. And in my image that I'm working from, he's wearing some green, there's some green in the background, and it's really the only cool color that's showing up. And it's something I will probably be bringing into his skin later on. So for you, the cool color might be something else. It might be ultramarine blue or cobalt blue, a phthalo or a purple. Whatever it is, put that out in your palette and use it for whatever cool there might be. I recommend using something that's showing up elsewhere in your image, maybe in the background, because it's a way to tie the background to the foreground. If there really is no cool color in your image, you'll probably just stick with ultramarine blue and you might not need to use it yet. Ultramarine blue is a color that's been used traditionally for hundreds of years when mixing with skin color. So, all right, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to be using kind of a mixture of small brushes and some of my larger ones. I'm going to start out first with my darkest areas, which I think are going to require me to use a smaller brush, even though I'd rather start with something bigger. And I'm mixing the yellow ochre with quite a bit of water, just so I can, not be too dark too quickly, right? Yeah, I might make mistakes, might make changes, and it's okay to be like a little messy at this point because we're just going to make corrections and go over things as we go. We're going to get darker with this yellow ochre as we go, but for now, just keep it really light and transparent. The nice thing is too, as it dries, it's going to help lock in some of the pencil because it will dry and then it'll hold that pencil in place so it won't pick up and mix into the paint quite as much. So a lot of times the darkest parts in the face are the line between the lips, the nostrils, pupils, of course, eyelashes. If you're dealing with the eyes, just know that the eyelashes are always going to be thicker on the top than they are on the bottom. If there are any showing up on the bottom, which in this case there are barely any, they're going to be very subtle. Just paint a few in there. But usually you're going to want to paint the pupil. Then I paint kind of the ring, the dark ring around the iris, and then get in those eyelashes on top. Right? Want to make sure that the eyelid is covering part of the eye. Usually comes down about a third of the way. If it comes down too much, they look sleepy. If it's too high up, the person looks surprised or anxious or scared or something ridiculous like that. Okay, go. And pretty soon I want to get onto a bigger brush because this brush is just really geared towards details. So I'm just trying to hit some of the smaller lines that we might have in here. Oftentimes the corner of the lips over here are going to be darker, and the top lip, it's downward facing, so it's usually going to be in shadow. So I'm going to shade in some of that top lip just a little bit. There we go. And we have light coming more from this side, so this side of the lip here on the lower lip is going to be in a little bit more shadow. All right, just thinking about some basic light logic. And trying to capture, as we do this, just some of the volume in the image. Usually there's a bit of shadow here right around the brow, because this is usually angled downwards. And the chin. The chin is sort of like kind of like a ball, right? It's kind of circular, and so is the nose, and then each of the nostrils are each kind of spherical, so they each kind of have their light logic, right? They're going to have their highlights and shadows in each of them. You need to go a little darker to differentiate some of these areas. Just go for it right now. My next pass will get quite a bit darker with the yellow ochre. But if you just need to kind of can't tell the difference between one plane and another, just go ahead and get darker now. When we're dealing with the hair, we're already painting with hair, right? So you can kind of use the texture of the brush to kind of just get that movement and texture that we have here. Don't worry about getting every little fiber or highlight right now. We're going to really just kind of focus on the general movement of the hair. And of course, I'm leaving highlights light right now, just using the white of the page. Those shouldn't disappear. If you make a mistake, just wipe it out. This is what this layer is all about. It's a chance to kind of slowly build up values, figure out where shadows are, and if we make mistakes, it's really easy to correct things still. It will get more challenging later on as you build things up thicker. So if you're not happy with something, fix it now. Step back every now and then and assess. Definitely also consider the clothing and the background. They're important parts of this painting as well. I also recommend paying attention to where do things cross in the background, right? Do they look good where they are? Do you want to move them around? Do you just want a blank background? Because that's fine too. This is your painting. Do what's best to kind of activate the space, but beware where things cross, because if they're going right behind the eyes, it has a tendency to kind of just make us track right across. Creates kind of a weird tangency issue that flattens space. So you might consider moving it a little up or a little down and see if it maybe feels a little better to you than being right at the eyes. Might make things feel like they sit more in the background if you move them around into a different spot. I've actually moved this window down a little bit. I want to see how that looks. I just don't really want this narrow white space up at the top. I think it feels a little too small to me. I want to have a little bit more weight up there. So we'll see if I stick with that later on. I'm not sure yet. At this point, I feel like it's a pretty good start. I don't think I can do much more without getting darker, so I'm going to go on into step 2.